as we go through this, you're able to make several changes to font. Now the changes that I'm making here in Word, you can also make these changes if you're using Excel, PowerPoint. They work across the Microsoft Office products. Okay, so first let's look at some basic text. So let's just get something typed up here. Okay, so we have some words on the screen, and I'm actually going to take this and increase it a little bit so we can see the changes that we're making. Okay, first thing that you can do is you can change what we call font style. Now this is the way that the letters look. If you go to your font style box, you see when you click on the drop down, you've got all kinds of different font styles that you can choose. So let's just go in and choose one of these. Another quick way to find a font, if you don't want to scroll down that big long list, like let's say most of your research papers have to be typed in Times New Roman. So a real quick way to find Times New Roman is just to simply click up in that box and start typing the name of the font that you want. And you see that it appears, and then you can just press enter, and it will change it to the font style that's appropriate for your document. Another changes you can make with font, of course, is to size. Now size refers to how big the letters are, how small the letters are. You can also click in this box and type in a font size. You see I use 13 there. 13 isn't originally found on my list. So you can insert any font size that you wish to. Another change that we can make with font, of course, is color. We all love to play with color. While most of your research papers and documents that you'll be submitting need to be turned in black ink, I know it's boring, there will be some assignments where you'll get to play around with some font colors. So you will have an icon that will have a large capital A with a little color block underneath it. If you just use your drop-down menu, you see that you can go here and select colors very easily, or you can even go to your More Colors screen, and it gets a little bit more advanced where you can actually go in and start playing around with your brightness and your contrast and different things like that. So let's just get a font color up here. Usually hot pink is not one I typically use, but we're going to make it work for today. Also, when choosing font colors, like I said, I don't like to use hot pink. You want to stay away from colors that are going to be hard to read. Hot pink usually being one of those. Your lime greens, any yellow font, especially if it's printed on a white background, is just going to be hard for the reader. Sometimes red can be a little bit harsh to the eyes as well. So when you're playing around with color combinations, you always want to make sure that you use bold colors that are easy to read. And while I'm on talking about easy to read, you want to make sure that you don't type documents in all capital letters. That is very hard for the reader to actually make the way through the document reading it if it's in all capital letters. Okay, so let's look at some more changes that we can make to font. I'm going to do, we've looked at our Control A feature before, but I'm going to do a Control A, which will highlight all of my text. And I'm going to copy this and paste it a few times so we can see the difference in the fonts. So I'm just going to use my Control C feature. And then I'm just going to do a quick Control V, get a few of them on there. All right, and let's look at some other changes that we can make. So I'm going to go in here and highlight. We're going to leave the first one just regular. I'm going to highlight the second one. And we're going to look at bold. Now you have a capital B icon up on your toolbar, or going with the keyboard shortcuts again, you can use your Control B as in bold feature. And notice what that did to the lines. It just gave every letter a thicker, darker appearance, okay? So if you ever needed to draw special attention to a specific phrase, word, sentence in your document, bold would be a good way to do that. Another change that you can make is with underlining. And I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Control U or Command U for the Mac users. And notice that just gives you a nice underline with your document. Now, let's say that those were the only 3 words I wanted to underline, but I still had some words to type in my sentence. Notice, if I just keep typing, notice it had everything underlined. So you need to make sure that you know how to take these options off. And it's very simple. All you have to do is just highlight. And notice here, I'm actually going to make sure that I get that extra space there in between. Okay, and I'm just going to use my Control U or Command U feature again, and notice it's taken off. Just like bold works the same way. Let me go ahead and do that. If I just use my Control B feature again, it reverts back to normal text. Okay, the last change we're going to look at right now is italics. Okay, italics you'll see here in the middle. It's with the slanted I, or you could also use your Control I or Command I feature. And notice the change that happened there. Every letter just kind of slants slightly to the right. Typically, when you are writing your research papers and referring to books, you're going to italicize these instead of underlining them. However, you need to make sure that you check with your ELA teacher in your MLA citation, because I believe that when you're doing your bibliography or your works cited page, book titles still have to be underlined. But just check with your teacher. A lot of times it's really teacher preference whether or not they want underlined or italicized options. Okay, those are basically the font changes that you can make. So you can change the size, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. We're going to make this one really tiny. Okay, you can change the font style. Let's go with something fun here. Now, I know that you really can't read that, but Wingdings is just a fun font if you ever need any symbols or anything. You can change the color, and you can bold, italicize, or underline. And basically, those are the changes that you'll need to be able to make with font throughout the course.